Hey guys, it's Adam from Mr. Pixel, and welcome back. This week, I was touched by a life. For only a moment, very briefly, only a couple of days. But it was long enough and deep enough to make me deeply feel its loss when it ended, when it was gone. A couple of days ago, my daughter called me into a room because she could hear a little squeak, a little scratching in the storage room just outside her bedroom. And went in and looked inside, and in the storage room, every now and then we'd get a little mouse that would, that might come in through the walls or something like that. And I have some of those capture and release traps, mouse traps, with some peanut butter in there. But there was nothing inside the trap. But my daughter said she saw a little mouse just outside of it. And we looked behind the freezer, right next to where the freezer, which was right next to where the trap was, and didn't see anything where she had originally seen this little mouse. And we were about to close the door, but then I decided to take the flashlight of my phone and look underneath, because there's a little space underneath the freezer. And sure enough, in the dust, in the dark, underneath this little ledge, I saw these two tiny little feet of this little mouse. Clearly a baby mouse. I couldn't see the body. The body was hidden. But I could see these little feet and this little tail sticking out. So I went, aha, you're hiding. So I got a pair of gloves, I got a pair of latex gloves, and I carefully picked them up. And tiny little thing, his eyes weren't open yet. My guess is he was probably around maybe 10 days old or so. And I got a little container for him. And I knew from past experiences not to take the mouse anywhere because he can't see yet. And there's a very good chance that maybe his mother was moving him somewhere, or maybe she had abandoned him. I don't know. But I kept him in the container, and for the first night, I made sure to keep him in that storage room in the dark and the quiet, so he wasn't too freaked out. And nobody showed up. No mom. No little droppings or anything like that to let me know that any mouse had been around to come and claim him or look for him. And so I figured I would feed him and start taking care of him. So very carefully, because he could have been sick, and I do have cats, I was very careful. I did my best to learn how to take care of a baby mouse, because I'd never done that before. And when I mean baby, I mean he was about 1/3 bigger than the nail on my thumb, my fingernail on my thumb, basically. He was about 1 inch altogether from head to toe. Very tiny little guy. And I got some kitten formula and some goat milk to see which one he would prefer. And I checked the temperature, and I got a little paintbrush, that I could feed him with, because I tried with an eyedropper and it just made a mess and he didn't want to open his mouth. And day after day, I kept checking for the mother to see if she would show up, and still nothing. And every 2 hours, I would prepare his meal, and I'd pick him up. A little guy, I'd hold him very carefully between my thumb and my fingers, and he was uncoordinated, as most baby mice are. And and I fed him with this little paintbrush. I'd dip it in the milk and I'd feed him. And my daughter and my girlfriend were like, don't get too attached, but it was too late. I already clearly had plans of keeping him if he survived, but I knew that a lot of these little guys very often are very fragile. But day after day, he slowly started to eat more. He started to become more active. I cleaned him up, so he started to look a little healthier. Still handling him very carefully with gloves. Very careful about that, of course. I called the vet, and they said, well, do your best to take care of him. I wasn't quite ready to claim him as a pet yet, but I couldn't imagine the idea of nursing him to health and independence, and then sending him out into the woods to get eaten by a bird or a snake. I just didn't see myself doing that. It seemed like a bit of a wasted effort. So I did plan on keeping him. And after a couple of days, he really started to, as I documented his progress, I slowly started to see his eyes open. He started to become more mobile. He started to recognize it when it was time to eat, and he would eat a little bit more, and I'd help him. I'd help him go to the bathroom when he needed it. All those kinds of things that a mommy mouse would do, type of idea. And he was really starting to get his energy. And he started to move around, and he started to become more active, and he started to become more alert. He started to look better. And at night, I put him in his container, and I picked up some of that cotton swabbing that you can get for a mouse bed that I had in kind of a plastic ice cream container that I was keeping him in. And at night, I put him up on a shelf, high up out of the way, so the cats couldn't get to him. And this morning, I came back from the gym, I had my shower, and I went and I looked in the container. And as soon as I opened it up, it was immediately evident that he wasn't alive anymore. He didn't pass away from weakness or fragility or starvation or dehydration or anything like that. What clearly had happened was he probably tried to get warm, so he dug himself into the cotton, and he went down head first into the cotton on the side of it, and he got himself tangled in it, and it looked like he probably suffocated. I knew it was too late. He was clearly gone, and well, that's what happens sometimes. And I'm sad. I'm sad that this accident happened. I was really starting to hope that he was going to be okay. And, well, that's nature. That's life. He passed away. So I took him outside, and I buried him gently next to the house in a little quiet spot. And that's where he is now. And I've been missing him a lot ever since. And I've been thinking about this little 1-inch blind baby mouse and this unfortunate accident that took his life. And my heart's broken. And the reason I'm sharing this sappy story with you, the reason I'm being so emotional with you, is because the relationship I had with this little guy, who I didn't name because, well, I didn't want to get attached. And obviously that worked. Managed to impact my life in a very profound way and create a very strong connection with me in 48 hours. A little nobody, a little speck of dust hiding underneath a freezer in the pitch black. And he had millions and millions of brothers and sisters out there that have all died similar fates. Drowning, being eaten, being killed by moms, starving to death, abandoned, getting sick, infested with a parasite, you name it. So many invisible deaths happening all over the world for natural or unnatural reasons. And he just happened to be one of millions. But what matters is that I found him. What matters was that he didn't need to do anything impressive to mark my life. He just needed to be himself. He just needed to matter to one living creature, and he just happened to meet me, and our paths crossed for 48 hours. And it was enough to matter. A lot. It was enough to make me very sad to see him go. And if for 2 seconds in your life you think you don't matter, just imagine how wrong you are. Because if you can be a 1-inch dusty blind mouse hiding underneath a freezer in a cold storage room, and you can break somebody's heart, then imagine what you can do. Imagine how much you matter. And all I can ask you to do is not take yourself for granted. All I can ask you to do is to know how precious your life is and every decision that you make. And I'm not going to hide how much this hurts because this is life, and this is the value of it. When I spoke about how humbling witnessing that eclipse was in my last art talk, how futile, how fleeting our lives are, that doesn't for a moment diminish the incredible value that it is. Don't ever underestimate yourself, the value of everything that you do, and don't underestimate and don't devalue how precious every fleeting decision you make has on the lives of everybody in the world who you just happen to cross paths with throughout your life. And I love you for that. You matter. Trust me, you matter more than you can ever possibly imagine. Take care. Hey guys, Zada from Loose Pixel, and welcome back. This week, I've been very deep in thought and very deep in feeling, because a few events happened this week that aligned perfectly in my mind. You could see that the stars aligned, and it just happens to be ironic that one of those reasons is because of the perfect, flawless, total solar eclipse that we witnessed this week, that many of us got a chance to witness. I very thankfully happened to live in the path of totality in Montreal, Canada. And although I only got a very brief 3 to 10 seconds glimpse of it, it's something that I'm going to remember for the rest of my life, as many of you who might have experienced it as well might feel as well. The fact that I could see a planet overlap a star so close with my naked eye was a very fascinating thought, that we could see this object in space pass in front of the sun is surreal in and of itself. When the moon, that was 400 times smaller than the sun, passed in front of the sun perfectly, that's exactly 400 times further away than the moon. An experience that our grandchildren and our great-grandchildren might never get to experience the way we did. And for that brief moment of totality, for those fleeting seconds of totality, I took the glasses off, and for the first time in my life, got to see a glimpse of the sun in its purest form. Not this yellowish ball of overwhelmingly glowing light glaring in my face that I have to wear a pair of sunglasses to avoid. No. A purely, flawlessly silver white ring of light against the most beautiful, deep, gray teal, dark sky, with a little tiny little perfect glint of fiery pink light shooting out the side, a prominence shooting out the side of this marvelous sight. And I didn't expect it to impact me as emotionally as it did. So much so that I ended up writing about it in my journal the following morning. And when I reflected on that experience, that fleeting 3 seconds that I risked glancing at it with my naked eye, I tried to describe how I felt looking at it. And then I realized how I felt about it. I felt in awe. I felt amazed. But most importantly, I felt sad. Reflecting on what I saw for only a very, very, very brief moment, for the only time in my life that I will ever be able to experience a total solar eclipse in its most flawless form that we won't be able to see due to the distance and the alignment and everything, every gravitational pull in the universe, all having to work perfectly to align everything that way at these perfect distances. I only experienced it once in my life, and it took me 50 years almost to reach that point, and I will never experience it again. And it wasn't that it was just beautiful. It was that I was reminded through my artist's mind that the universe itself is so spectacularly beautiful that I'm not even permitted to look at it. It's the closest thing to a religious experience I could say I've ever had in my life, that the universe itself is so overwhelmingly spectacular and powerful and complex that my meager, frail human eyes aren't even capable of gazing upon it. And that the universe gave us that day, on June 8th, 2024, a couple of fleeting seconds to gaze at a fleck of that universe. And it was by far the most visually spectacular thing I have ever seen. I was permitted a glimpse at a universe that I will never have permission to visit. And as an artist, someone who lives in a world, lives in a mind that is always aiming himself in the direction of capturing the grandeur and beauty of this world and this universe and the people and the creatures that inhabit it, it is overwhelmingly humbling to know that I'm never even going to be able to partially appreciate the grandeur that is this universe that I was a creation of. To me, my creator is that pure silver ball of light in the sky. And I looked at her for just a fleeting moment, and if I risked looking at her even one moment later, I could be blinded for the rest of my life. That's a fantastic but very saddening thought, isn't it? Because our sun is only one of trillions and trillions of stars of many different varying sizes and shapes throughout this vast universe that I will never be able to leave my own atmosphere to visit. That fucking sucks, doesn't it? And if there's any reason for me to dream of an afterlife, it's that I could leave this body and visit this universe and look at it without the risk of damaging myself. I wish for that experience, because that little fleeting moment that I had was only a glimpse of just how spectacular this universe can be. But I think it would be cruel for me, or any of us, especially as artists, to have this experience without being able to fully comprehend and appreciate and capture it. Because as an artist, that's our goal. It's to capture the beauty of our experience in the best way we can. And we spend our entire lives trying to capture it through our talent, through our dedication, through our time, through what very few years we have on this planet. And that's what that moment left me with. It was this feeling of utter humility. And then later on, during that week, I was watching a video by another artist of sorts that expressed a very similar feeling in a much more human and much more approachable way. Because I was watching some UFC, some Ultimate Fighting Championship, which is something I've never been into watching fighting growing up. But for some reason, recently I've been very interested in it. I was watching videos by Conor McGregor and by BJ Penn, and then I started watching some videos and some fights and some interviews with my local superstar Ultimate Fighting Champion, GSP, Georges St-Pierre, who's from here in Montreal, Quebec. This is a person who's, like us, dedicated his life to the mastery of his craft, to the mastery of his art, the art of fighting. And I really do honestly feel it is, in many, many ways, an art. It's a dance, it's a study, it's a celebration of humanity in its rawest form, if you think about it. It's one of those skills, much like drawing and painting and music and acting, that you have to come to terms with your own humanity in order to master it. It's how we as people try to harness our own power, our own abilities as people, to be able to communicate that passion to others. And in order for us to be able to be masters of our own craft, much like a fighter, we have to understand the people which we interact with, either by dazzling them with our talent and our form of communication, or by conquering them as a fighter. It's a physical activity, it's an emotional activity. And in one of his interviews, he said something that aligned perfectly with what I experienced, what a lot of us must have experienced when it came to witnessing this eclipse and being humbled by its beauty. He described, after he'd already become world champion and arguably one of the greatest fighters of all time, a habit, a practice that he would do deliberately. Because when you're on this mountain, when you're on this summit as one of the highest achievers in their craft, it's very easy to lose sense of your humanity on Earth. And he said, one of the things I love to do is just sit there at a park or in a parked car, anywhere, and just watch normal people, as he said with a smirk on his face, because he was being a bit sarcastic, right? Normal people. He would watch an old woman walking to her car. He would watch another guy packing his groceries with his kids. He would watch some other person walking up a flight of stairs looking at their phone. He would just watch people doing normal everyday things. And he would think to himself, nobody gives a shit about what you do, George. Nobody gives a shit about this strain, this worry, this pressure you put on yourself to win, to be the world champion, to hold on to your belt, hold on to your championship status. Nobody cares. That old woman doesn't know who you are. That guy putting his groceries into his car might not give a shit, might not be looking forward to your next fight. He might have much more important things to him to worry about. And he said, just remembering that his life, remembering that his goals, his aspirations, his desires, his motivations are specks of dust in the vastness of this universe, and that his life is so incredibly insignificant in and of itself that it grounds him as a person. It grounds him as a living creature and puts life into perspective. Exactly the way that eclipse, that glimpse into the vastness of the universe that we all had this week on June 8th, 2024, at 3:26 p.m. Eastern Time in Montreal, reminded us that our lives and our desires are fleeting and meaningless in and of themselves. Did it make me feel like giving up? Did it make me feel like, what's the fucking point in any of this? Why bother with my little with my little life goal? No, it didn't. Looking at that eclipse did not make me feel like giving up, and it didn't destroy my feeling of self-worth. And this life's pursuit of art and the threats to it, like artificial intelligence and plagiarism and theft and all that crap, has done absolutely not one fraction of a thing to stop me from continuing forward at full steam with full motivation. I have not experienced a single student of mine or a single artistic friend of mine in any different type of art that for a moment, despite all of these demonstrations of our own futility, have done anything to stop. They're still going full steam. They motivate themselves more and more every single day and push themselves more and more every single day to become better versions of who they are. Why? What's the fucking point of me doing another drawing? How is me not drawing for the next half of my life going to have any impact on the universe as a whole? It won't. It's meaningless. It's pointless. Why do I keep doing it? Well, that's the thing. It's the fact that this isn't about me. I'm not here for myself. There is nothing that I've ever done for myself that has ever had any true meaning to itself. Everything that I do for myself is for everyone else. Everything that I do for myself is to make myself a longer lasting, smarter, stronger, more capable, wiser, more humble, more empathetic vessel for everybody else's experiences. I don't